All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our study where we are in Exodus chapter 32. Last time we ended with verse 14, but I think we'll still read the full chapter here today and get the full context of the golden calf and pick up with our questions on verse 15. So, would someone just do a quick review, read for us the first 14 verses of Exodus 32? Margaret.
When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." Aaron answered them, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. But they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, "Tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord." So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterward they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it, sacrificed to it, and have said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt.' I have seen these people," the Lord said to Moses, "and they are a stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation." But Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. "O Lord," he said, "why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out, to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, 'I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever.' Then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had threatened."
All right, so just to review, tell me what's going on with the Israelites at this time.
They obviously went away from the Lord. They were concerned Moses is not showing up. Obviously no patience. So,
Okay, so they're concerned that Moses has been gone a long time, and it seems like they see an opportunity here to kind of do what they want to do, right? Mom and Dad have left, and the kids are at home.
but excuse me, I'm surprised Aaron, of all people, would have fallen into this.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What's going on with Aaron?
You know, how does this happen? You know.
I mean, we're kind of perplexed with Aaron, aren't we? There's not much pushback from him at all. We get the impression, definitely, that he's thinking, well, if this is what you guys want, we'll do this. We'll take the earrings and the jewelry, and he even cast it into the shape of a calf. And I don't know if you remember, we were here last time, but I said that might be kind of on the party side of the gods of Egypt. You know, the calf was the fertility god in Egypt, so not like Aaron made them a boring god, a boring idol. So what are the chances of that, right? So Aaron knew what they wanted, knew maybe what would be pleasing to them. So at best you could say it's not his idea, but he certainly is not fighting against it. We'll see here in a minute that he knows it's wrong. Okay, so what's going on with God? With the golden calf happening?
He's obviously not happy.
He's upset. And his plan is to destroy them, right? Start over with Moses. We're going to do this right a different way. And kind of conjectured about this. Is that possible? Well, everything with God is possible. Might be a little different. Sure. But Moses comes back and he says, "This isn't what we should do." Why?
Because he had made a covenant with Abraham.
Okay, so we had a promise with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, not with me, Moses, right? So you made a promise to them, so you should keep it. And what was the other thing he said?
All with the rest of the world, look around.
Okay, we would be a laughing stock, wouldn't we? Yeah. So even though they're out in the wilderness, people have their eyes on the Israelites, and they look like a very unorganized group of people if they start, defeat Egypt only to be smited by their God. So he has this really nice prayer, reminder of the Lord to God of his promises. God relents. I would say that Moses is very charitable because he hasn't physically been down with the people yet. As that's where we're going to pick up now. Now Moses is maybe going to fully understand why God was ready to start over. So verse 15 to 29. Unless there's a question lingering, I would take a question. That's the quick review. Okay, 15 to 29. Bigger section, but we'll just do 15 to 21 and then we'll split it up with somebody else. So 15 through 21. Reader, share. That's right there.
Moses turned and went down the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant law in his hands. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people shouting, he said to Moses, "There is the sound of war in the camp." Moses replied, "It's not the sound of victory. It's not the sound of defeat. It's the sound of singing that I hear." When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf the people had made, and he burned it in the fire. Then he ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. He said to Aaron, I can take it to 29.
Okay.
He said to Aaron, "What did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin?" "Oh, do not be angry, my lord," Aaron answered. "You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, 'Make us gods who will go before us.' As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what has happened to him." So I told them, "Whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off." And they gave me the gold. I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. Moses saw that the people were running wild and that Aaron had let them get out of control, and so became a laughingstock to their enemies. So he stood at the entrance to the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me." And all the Levites rallied to him. Then he said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Each man strap a sword to his side, go back and forth through the camp from one end to the other, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor." The Levites did as Moses commanded, and that day about 3,000 of the people died. And Moses said, "You have been set apart to the Lord today, For you were against your own sons and brothers, and he has blessed you this day.
All right, thank you. In the look section, it notes verse 26. Whoever is for the Lord, come to me. And all the Levites rallied to him. In this way, the Levites showed themselves worthy of the priestly honor bestowed upon them. As Moses stated in verse 29, the Levites became the Lord's special possession. I always read that text and I think of the Alamo where the general drew the line. What was the general in the Alamo that drew the line? Historian, anybody?
Sam Houston.
Was it Houston? Yeah. He drew the line in the sand, and who's ever going to stay, cross over the line. I don't know. Maybe Sam Houston was an Old Testament scholar. You know, who's going to be with me, right? The Levites rallied to the Lord, and they killed, or I wouldn't say they killed because God commanded them to, right? So they struck down 3,000 people. Why those 3,000 people? I don't know. Maybe they were the drunkest partiers. I don't know. We're not really told why those people were specifically. But maybe it became pretty clear that, yeah, these people did not cross the line. They still resisted Moses and the Lord. So, at some point here, we're saying, yeah, these people were called out for the idol. They drank the water first, didn't they? And then they still resisted. Yeah. So very stiff-necked, right? I mean, you would have thought drinking the idol would have been all that was needed, but nope. They still resisted the Lord and Moses. Yeah. What were they thinking? Boy, maybe they were just not on Moses' timetable, right? They want to do their own thing as a nation. I made a note on verse 25, out of control. Moses saw that they were running wild and that, Aaron had let them get out of control. So, what is out of control? Right.
Probably anything you can think of that happens in society right now.
Anything the Egyptians they had seen the Egyptians do, and maybe anything happening now. But
Pastor, and like a percentage, I mean, wasn't there almost 1 million people that came out of Egypt? So if you're talking 1 million and then you're saying 3,000, that's still, not that it's not severe, I mean, they were out of control, but a percentage of the population, it seems like they were probably in camps of different people.Maybe they were relatives or they were more.
yeah, so okay. I mean, what's a city of 1 million people?
Milwaukee.
Is Milwaukee 1 million?
Well,
I think the metro is maybe
Yeah.
600, but yeah. So is everybody worshiping at this golden calf? Well, is everybody taking place in the riot in Milwaukee? Maybe not, right? But we definitely have. It definitely doesn't seem fringe. It definitely seems more than just a couple. If 3,000 people were the worst offenders and God made a message out of them. Boy, I don't know. If there was a riot and we arrested 3,000 people, how big was the riot? That was huge, probably, right? So, but yeah, I would But we do see that everybody is told to drink from the calf, type of thing. So we do get the impression that everybody was sharing in this guilt, and God even said He wanted to destroy the whole nation. So punish the children for the sins of the fathers to the first generation of who worship the golden calf. Doesn't seem to be too far of a stretch for me. So, but yeah. Any other thoughts or comments before we dive into the questions on the sheets? Yeah. The Israelites have, other thought, the Israelites haven't really been in a arm-to-arm combat with anybody, right? I mean, everything has been God fighting for them up until this point. So is this the first war or battle with the Israelites as a nation? It is, kind of, isn't it? Yeah, God is striking them down. I mean, they're going to get into a lot of fights in the Promised Land, that's for sure. But, yeah. The Levites, God's priestly family, their first job is to get rid of these idol worshippers. And, yeah. I don't know, maybe we'll talk about it in a minute, but what are we thinking of Aaron here? Can we believe anything he says?
No,
Yeah. I don't know.
This calf this golden calf just popped out of nowhere. Whereas he made it.
Yeah, so we just found out, Moses tells us that he fashioned it. So it was not the work of the devil through some sort of potion throwing gold melting experiment. But yeah, he lies about it coming out. And I guess maybe I could be surprised that Aaron doesn't get a slap on the wrist or something. Does that surprise you too?
oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sharon, you got that?
No, I was just thinking, unless because he's a Levite too, whether he rallied. The only thing I could think of was he just so threatened by the people, like just to appease them. I understand one person against thousands, and just to appease them for that, and his weakness, that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because he knew he's already been set apart, and so all those things, and he couldn't handle it.
Yeah, maybe you have you knew this kid. There was always this kid at school that he would always get in trouble because everybody knew he would just do what you told him to do, right? like go into the teacher's desk and take out, take all their pencils or something. Put a whoopee cushion over there. Is that maybe Aaron? Is he that? I mean, he's with Moses because. Remember why God?
He's the spokesman.
He's the spokesman. Yeah, he's a good speaker. But maybe Moses even knows that Aaron can be kind of a tool. Can you be a good speaker but yet not have a backbone? So I don't know. That's maybe the best I can say, and maybe the laughingstock comment too. Well, if God kills Aaron, well, God maybe God still has a purpose for Aaron. That God is going to relent it from punishing him. But boy, God, it's definitely a point of God has mercy on whom He wants to have mercy and punish who He wants to punish.
There is that mob mentality too. There's the mob of Israelites coming for one Aaron.
Okay. Well, and to his benefit, could we say, we read the text and it feels like they came to Aaron on a Tuesday afternoon, and by Tuesday night they had a golden calf. But could it be we get to heaven and Aaron says they were pressuring me all week? And I mean we get the highlights of the story, but we don't really know what was happening behind the scenes before that. It would seem a little odd, like the worst of the riot happened on the first day, right? The worst of the riot usually happens like on the second or third day. Historically, I would say. So is that what we're looking at here? At any rate, Aaron does let them get out of control, right? The buck does fall on Aaron, and he saw this coming and didn't put an end to it. So Yeah. Good comments, good thoughts. Okay, so number one there. What did Moses have in his hands as he climbed down the mountain?
Clay tablets.
Get these clay or stone tablets, right? You said clay, but is it stone? What's our
Two
interpretation?
tablets of a testimony.
Okay, well, stone is clay, but yeah, they were written by God's hand, right? So that's pretty special.
Stone.
Okay, yeah, tablets of stone. Typically, we're given these stones with a rounded edge at top. We don't really. I don't think we really know, but they might have been square, from Kinko's or something. Okay, what did he do with them when he saw what Israel was doing? Al?
Took them and threw them down.
All right, he smashed them. And why did he do that? What did that symbolize?
His anger against the people for turning from the Lord.
His anger. Yeah.
Broken promise with God.
So he hadn't even shown them really what God had said and God's promises to them, and they'd already broken them. So, and this came right after he pleaded to save the people, right? So he's like, have mercy on these people, and then, then you see it. And I suppose we understand that too, right? It's easy to have compassion sometimes until you see it. That's why wars are weird, I suppose, right? People thousands of miles away might have compassion, but if you were on the front lines of a war, you might feel differently. So might be more empathetic to how people feel.
I always think of the Civil War, how the first part of the Civil War, they were partying. I mean, they thought it was going to be the greatest battle and thought it would be done on a weekend. And it lasted 4 years.
Yeah, I think of my grandpa. He drove a Toyota, but he fought in World War II.
Yeah.
And but he wasn't on the west side. He was in Eastern Europe. So I'm like, well, if he would have been at Pearl Harbor, he probably wouldn't have fought a Toyota. But, yeah.
You didn't go to Michigan with that Toyota.
No. That's true too. That's why I could never take a call to Michigan, because I don't have a Toyota, and no one would like me.
That's still true today.
Yeah, it's something.
I had a Volvo and it didn't get repaired when it broke down.
All right, so number 2. Over the course of 2 days, Moses and the Lord punished the Israelites 3 times. Okay, so locate these 3 punishments and discuss what impact each must have had on Israel. The first punishment, and then we note the third one is not in the text we read, but a little bit later.
Okay, that's why I was confused.
Yeah, so but we'll start with the first one. In verse 20, they. All right. Yeah. What do you think? I have thoughts on this. I want to hear your thoughts. What's that all about? Drink the calf.
How weak it was.
Okay, it showed how weak it was. I wasn't thinking that, but that's good. How so?
Well, if somebody could bust it up, smash it into a powder and mix it in your water, it's pretty useless.
Yeah.
It can't even defend itself.
It's very frail if it can be just crushed like that. Yeah.
And consumed.
Yeah. what is it? I think it's Goldschlager, the beer with the little beer flame.
Mm.
So
Gritty.
again, we don't know how big the calf is, but I think it's more than just a tchotchke on your desk. But yeah, it might have been clad and yeah, crushed it up, drink it. So it wouldn't have killed them, right? But yeah. What else? Why else do you think crush it? Drink it?
I'm sure the taste, the metallic taste would be something very undesirable.
Yeah, I think there's something symbolic with the taste, right? You praise this with your lips and your tongue, and now you're gonna drink it with your tongue. And just taste how yucky it is. Yeah. And this was not water into wine. This was water into really nasty minerals.
And he burned it first and then ground that to powder. That had to be yucky to taste. Look,
Yeah.
ash and ash.
You wonder if it was the same people that made the calf that was now ordered to, melt it down and grind it into a powder. Yeah. I always think too, you can't, maybe with this being frail type of thought, that you can't put it back together, right? There's no temptation. It's not going into the treasury of the country, and you guys are not going to make earrings again out of it. It's just completely gone. It's nothing. So I think at some point you're left with a big blob of gold. What do you do with it? It's gone. It's just gone. So probably a pretty wise thing to do in that sense too. Second punishment, verse 27.
He asked the people who they would serve.
Yeah, then they went from one end of the camp to the other, killing his brother and friend and neighbor. So, again, we get the highlights here. Is this Moses talking to the Levites, and the Levites come over to him, and now they have to go through the camp and take the survey? Maybe I'm leaning towards that now. Is your household going to serve the Lord? Yes? All right, I'm moving on. Your house going to serve the Lord? No. Well, I brought a sword for you. Could it be like that? It wasn't random, right? It really wasn't random. It was for those hardened sinners and idol worshippers. Jared, did you have a hand that went up and no? Okay. Yeah. So they must have reported back to Moses how many people they had killed. So in the wilderness, I suppose we have our big first mass funeral. Not a fun time. But there's another one. This is in verse 35. I'll read that verse since we haven't read it. And the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made. So the last thing that happened was, after all of that, there was a plague. And we don't get any details, which is probably a good thing, maybe. You're not told from the plague that more people died. It just sounds like this was a time of suffering and trial for the people. As
People
they
who
would-
have gotten sick and then turned to the Lord too.
All right, yeah. So, how much calf did everybody drink? Unknown. How many people died? 3,000. How many people were affected by the plague? It sounds like everybody, and then everybody else that was remaining. So nobody in Israel, between the deaths and the drink and the plague, were left the same. And maybe that's Aaron's punishment, right? Maybe that's Aaron's cross to carry. You know, what he allowed to happen and the consequences of it. So maybe that was worse than death. I don't know. Comments, questions? 3 punishments. In God's eyes, I'm sure he's still thinking. I didn't start over with Moses, but you guys have to shape up. Question 3: how does Aaron describe his state of mind when the Israelites asked him to lead them in their idolatry? Kind of talked about this, but
It kind of reminds me, I can't think of the person's name, he was a comedian from the 60s. The devil made me do it.
the devil made me do it.
That was his line.
Yeah. Anybody remember what comedians used to say that? The devil made me do it. It is kind of a running tagline that people can still use, right? Yeah.
He's saying, people made me do it.
Yeah, I noted that there's something interesting it does say when he wanted to have a festival to the Lord. And I didn't bring this up earlier. Where anybody seen that passage? I should have made a note.
It's verse 5.
Okay, tomorrow we will have a festival to the Lord. Yeah. So there's a part of me that wants to construe that. So okay, if I want to defend Aaron here a little bit, it sounds like he knows it's wrong. And is he saying a festival to the Lord with this golden calf? Or is he saying this calf is the Lord? And I guess maybe that's where I'm kind of looking at. Well, my People's Bible, what does it say? Concordia says, apparently Aaron recognized the idolatrous consequences, his deeds, and acted quickly to keep the people from turning completely away from the Lord. So the Study Bible says, maybe that was his last-ditch effort. You know, kind of like, well, I'll give you the golden calf, but we're going to worship the Lord tomorrow. So I don't get that later. Later I get this thought that this is a miraculous calf, and I know that's what the people wanted. But maybe there is a little bit of Aaron here fighting against it. But again, it's sort of like, yeah. Today we'll be saved by works, but tomorrow we're going to be saved by grace. Okay, let's just get back on track tomorrow. You know, it's not good to compromise the true God and truth and lies like that. But you do kind of see that a little bit. So,
to me, that means that not all the people were worshiping or going to worship this calf. I think the camp was divided. You have some Christians and you have some non-Christians. And so I think Aaron was saying, okay, for you Christians, well, tomorrow we're going to have a Lord's Day. That's what it means to me.
yeah. But it sure sounds like so Moses comes down the mountain and the Lord's Day, this celebration day, maybe he's even trying to have happen doesn't, because it sounds like they won a victory in a war. Verse 17. Sounds like something good happened. No, nothing good is happening. So, but yeah, it's truly striking that they could be so quickly celebrating their false god. And again, you recall we did bring people out of Egypt that were not Jews. They were on the train of like, well, your God has plagues and your God is very powerful and Egypt is crumbling. We're going to get out of here. So there is some of that that maybe is creeping back up to the surface. Margaret?
Well, the people had observed the worship of the Egyptians with this Apis, the god that was the bull or the young bull,
Yeah.
which was a symbol of power and sex. It says in the People's Bible, it says, no doubt the Israelites had often seen the wild celebrations in Egypt connected with the so-called worship of this god. And that was just what they wanted, certainly far more enjoyable than to be bound by a strict moral code. And it says, once those who have been trained to follow a strict way of life break out of this discipline, they often lose all restraint. They go to the other extreme. And they certainly were taking advantage of the extreme in this case.
Yeah. And you can understand, living in the wilderness was not fun. I mean, this was no trip to the Dells, you know. I mean, and you do sense this rebellion. You know, they want stability. They want their own homeland. Right now they're nomads and in the middle of nowhere. But that's part of God's testing them. And guess what? Because they don't trust God to bless them, they're going to get 40 more years in the wilderness. So I saw a hand over here was. You ever take the eye test at the DMV and it's like, boy, I sure hope I see those things in the corners of my eye. I don't know how good the corners of my eyes have been working lately. Yeah. Anyway.
By the way, I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but I did remember the name of the comedian was Flip Wilson.
Flip Wilson! Double made Flip Wilson do it.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time ago.
He's been gone for.
That's a long time ago.
4. God intended Israel to be a light to the world and display his glory. What had the Israelites sinned made them instead?
I put down a pitiful and sorrowful lot.
Pitiful, sorrowful lot. NIV 84 said laughing stock. Did anybody have the EHV handy? Was that still laughing stock?
Where was that?
Verse 25, I noticed. Because I did research this. I'm like, well, how long? Like, what's the? Is it etymology of laughing stock?
To the diversion.
In Shakespeare it came up. Like it's a 1500s word from Shakespeare.
And when Moses saw the people he had broken loose, for Aaron had let them break loose to the diversion. I can't even say the word.
But
Diversion of their enemies.
yeah. So anyway, I mean Moses didn't know Shakespeare, but so laughing stock is the closest we could get to like ridicule or being mocked.
Thank you.
Derision,
Derision.
to deride someone.
That was a
Oh, reasons to knock them down a peg or something.
That's what mine says.
Yeah. The derision. Anyway, so there's your Shakespeare in the Old Testament. You're reading your Bible and it's like laughing stock's actually a Shakespeare word. But it gets the meaning. It gets the meaning. Yeah. What do you think of how Aaron explained his sin to Moses? You know, I take this, you know the answer because I've been saying it, but is explaining any sin, can you ever do that well? Can you ever explain a sin well? And that's the thing, sin is not rational. you know, when you maybe it's rational to another sinner, but if you try to explain it to someone who's not in the sin with you, or you try to explain it to God in a prayer or something, you're not going to sound rational. You're just gonna sound dumb. And Aaron is trying to explain a sin, and he sounds dumb. There's nothing. There's no positive out of this other than, you know, the people weren't upset with Aaron. I did it because no one was upset with me. Yeah, great reason.
You do it to yourself too. I mean, how many times have you said, well, why did I do that? You know, that was stupid. And you try to think, okay.
Over and over.
Yeah,
I see that all the time.
that's. I don't know. It maybe that's. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if you send someone to a secular counselor, won't they hit a wall where the problems in their life are just crazy talk? I mean, you're talking in a circle at a dead end about well, this is why my life is a mess, and this is why I sinned or someone sinned against me, and I'm trying to understand it. Help me understand it so I can move on. And it really takes a Christian to maybe bump you out of that, cul-de-sac at the end of your road to say, their sin against you isn't rational. They're a sinner. Your sin against somebody isn't going to make sense. So I'm not going to explain to you why you did it in a rational way, because it's not rational to break God's law. And you can beat around the bush and say, well, he did it because he had earrings and he had people complaining and he thought he was the leader. But at the end of the day, if you keep asking why, you get to the conclusion of it doesn't make any sense, because he knows God is real. God's not going to be happy. He knows Moses is coming back. Moses isn't going to be happy. He knows they're not going to march through the wilderness with this golden calf and everybody's just going to pretend like it's okay. It's not rational. He's not thinking rationally. He's in the moment thinking about himself selfishly, simply. So anytime you try to defend yourself or try to understand someone else's sin, just remember that eventually you will get to the point where you will conclude sin isn't rational. That's the simple nature. It does not conform to God's will and it doesn't want to. So, but yeah, we try to figure everything out, and eventually it comes back to the simple nature, which isn't rational. Adam and Eve hid from God after they ate from the tree. It wasn't rational.
Well, Sigmund Freud is the fault of it all. He's the all-time, it was your parents' fault.
Oh, yeah. Right, so nature versus nurture. Why are you screwed up? Your parents must be why you're screwed up. Yeah. And I inherited everything from cancer to impatience to everything from my parents, and I get that. I don't want to fight that, but it all comes back to sin, right? It all comes back to sinful nature. So, parents are the fault, Freud said, and your dreams are you trying to solve your problems. Okay. 6. Sometimes we think only of the effect our sins have on us personally. Whom also should we take into consideration when we are tempted to sin? Al did the.
Everybody.
Right. So Aaron was in a place of leadership and example, and he certainly affected others with his behavior and his lack of love for the Lord. Conclusion, or last italicized comment there on the sheet says, Moses smashed the 2 stone tablets and expressed his own and God's anger over what Israel had done. Yeah. Makes me wonder, did the stone tablets come out of the printer like in 3 seconds? Or did Moses watch them be made? And yeah. 40 days. Yeah, God's finger carved it. At any rate, yeah. Ever smash something precious in anger?
Yes.
Yeah.
I regret.
And then you regret it. Yeah. I'll go into the Floyd's counseling room. I remember one time my father got an award from work. It was like literally the one award throughout the company all year, and it looked like a little Washington monument. And he's been with the company 29 years, and only one person gets the award. 6 months later, he was really mad at work, and he threw it away. And I remember it going out in the trash. I was like, oh, he's going to regret that. Yeah.
Did he ever?
He never got it back. I never asked him if he regretted it. But when he retired, he got a ring, and he wore the ring all the time. So, but yeah. Because I remember they're like, yeah, only like one person in the whole company a year gets this award. Like, that's really cool. Yeah. I digress. Like everybody, we can have some anger issues. You work for roadway trucking. They used to be like the second biggest trucking company in the country. He's a dispatcher and supervisor. Yeah.
Every big year.
So, bought out by Yellow, and then Yellow probably got bought out or went under.
USF Holland,
Yeah.
and now they are now.
I don't know. No longer, yeah.
Yeah.
He was not a Teamster, which he influenced my thoughts on unions, which is another reason I can't go to Michigan because my dad used to complain about the Teamsters all the time. Because when they went on strike, he got laid off. He didn't get paid because he was
Right.
so. All right.
He had nobody to dispatch.
No one to dispatch, yeah. We got 5 minutes. Let's just crawl into verse 30 a little bit. 32, verse 30 to 11. So it's okay. Moses again intercedes for Israel. The original tent of meeting. So my father's in heaven, by the way. That's what I can talk about him. Yeah, it's not like he's watching this at home or something. 2011. Okay, look, the story emphasizes the shameful sin Israel committed in worshiping the golden calf so soon after God made a solemn covenant with them on Mount Sinai. While this emphasis is in place, we must not forget perhaps the most striking feature of the story. This is Moses' great act of intercession, reflected in verses 31 and 32 and 11 through 13. Moses throws Israel's case upon the mercy of God. He reminds God of his promises. He even offers his own life in place of the lives of the Israelites. All right, verse 30. Let's go to 35. That's probably a good ending point for us. A reader? Bob, think.
The next day Moses said to the people, "You have committed a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin." So Moses went back to the Lord and said, "Oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made themselves gods of gold. But now please forgive their sin. But if not, then blot me out of the book you have written." The Lord replied to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go, lead the people to the place I spoke of, and my angel will go before you. However, when the time comes for me to punish, I will punish them for their sin. And the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made.
All right. So,
Sounds like a negotiation.
yeah. So, I thought we already had this negotiation. So, I'll leave the questions for next time. We can just discuss a little bit. I thought we had this negotiation. You did too, yeah. Margaret, what do you thought?
Now, I'm thinking that's a tendency of a very good leader, is that he takes upon himself the responsibility for the actions of his people, whether he agreed with them or not. In this case, he certainly did not agree with what they had done, but he was willing to take upon himself to save his people, to take their punishment.
Yeah.
I mean, this is God he's talking to. You can't bargain with God, but he does plead their case. He does offer himself as a substitute for their disobedience.
Yeah, the admiral of the fleet at Midway saw his ship, his aircraft carrier burning and sinking into the ocean, and he said, "I'm going to go down with the ship." You know, he sent all his men on the lifeboat, but he, in honor, the admiral stayed because he had messed up. He was the reason that they lost, and yeah, you see Moses here, like I will go down for these people, right? And I think maybe what's happening here too is they drank the calf yesterday. Today there's 3,000 people that have been not murdered, but they've been executed for their rebellion, and now maybe Moses is circling back saying, it feels like we're going back to where we started. You're going to start a nation with me. And Moses is kind of maybe heading this off. You ever do that? You see a problem and you're like, you're going to be really mad. I'm really, really sorry before you can get mad. I wonder if that's a little bit of what's happening with Moses. Because now the third plague comes after this request, right? So God says, I'm not going to destroy them. I'm going to send a plague. So maybe this is why the plague isn't as bad as it could have been. But yeah, Moses, I don't know. If God was watching Moses very carefully the last 24 hours, it looked like Moses may have changed his mind. Maybe we should destroy these people. And Moses may be reminding God and himself here, no, that's not what I want. That's kind of my second or third read of this. Not that he was, I don't know, not that he was worried God would go back on his word, but maybe even by his actions, it looks like he's encouraging it. Maybe he's, God could get the impression Moses was on board with destroying him. Bob?
I almost wanted to say that, they just got done executing 3,000. So Moses is saying, going back and saying, okay, God, are we good now? Have I failed you because you are not happy yet? That's why he's willing to give himself up. Have I let you down? And are we good yet? And God says, well, not quite.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So is this his Middle Eastern way of saying, are we good? And there is this Middle Eastern cultural we see it with Abraham too, like the way they debate, we just don't understand it sometimes. And maybe you're onto something there, yeah, with that. This is kind of a check. Are we okay? Yeah, interesting here. Moses knows about I don't think the question's asked this, but Moses talks about the book of life and all these people being blotted out. And that's, I don't know, if I was, retired and had time, I might just dig into that some more to think about, because I know the book of life is referred to a lot in the New Testament too. And is the book of life a book with everybody's names on it that'll ever be born? And then Moses is saying to blot it out if they're not going to heaven. Yeah. So maybe this is not a book that, oh, you're born, you came to faith, now you're written in the book of life here at your baptism. Maybe the book of life has everybody. But if you rebel against the Lord, you're blotted out and you're not going to heaven. So unless you have to do an analogy of the passage, right? Do the big doctrinal deep dive. But that's what it seems to be saying here. The book of life is something Moses knew about. And yeah, you can blot me out if you want. So I think we can say that's the first book of life reference, which is kind of cool. Naomi, yes.
Psalm 45 verse 7 tells why that was not possible.
Oh, can you read it for us? You sure?
I can't really see. No man can redeem the life of another or give to God a ransom for him. The ransom for a life is costly. No payment is ever enough that he should live on forever and not see decay.
Yeah. Can we think of a time where somebody really ransomed a group of people with God's agreement? The only person I can think of is Jesus. Right? Can't think Moses or anybody else did. At least not in this eternal sense, right? Seems like, yeah. But yeah, Moses loved the people. And you clearly see why God chose him to be the leader. But yeah, we went from a really bold prayer, don't destroy these people, to if you're going to don't destroy these people, if you have to destroy someone, destroy me. Yeah. All right, we'll pick it up more there next time. Unless there's some other thoughts. Let's close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we marvel at how much how great a leader Moses was, that he cared for the people and even offered himself as the sacrifice for them. But that also just reminds us all the more that Jesus could do that and did do that for all of us, taking our sins and perishing so that we could live eternally with you. Bless the rest of this day and certainly our congregation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him above the heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen.